To date, we've struck over 7,000 targets across Iran and its military infrastructure. That is not incremental. That is overwhelming force applied with precision. And again, today will be the largest strike package yet, just like yesterday was. As I've said from day one, our capabilities continue to build, Iran's continue to degrade. We're hunting and striking death and destruction from above.
One in 5 barrels of oil on this planet moves through a gap of water 21 miles wide. Iran has spent the last decade building its entire military doctrine around a single idea. Close that gap, and you hold the global economy hostage. That strategy just hit a wall. The Strait of Hormuz has always been Iran's trump card, and historically, that card worked. In 1988, during the tanker war, Iran's mines and patrol boats shut down commercial traffic and dragged the U.S. Navy into direct armed conflict. Tehran never forgot that lesson. Fast forward to 2025. Iran activated that same playbook, laying mines, deploying fast attack swarms, threatening to close the strait entirely. For a moment, it looked like the old doctrine would hold. Then the United States made one move that changed the entire equation. AH-64 Apache helicopter gunships, the most combat-proven attack helicopter on the planet, were deployed directly into the Gulf, operating from U.S. Navy ships and forward bases within striking distance of the Strait. This wasn't a show of force. It was a surgical answer to a specific problem. And to understand why Iran is panicking, you need to understand exactly what the AH-64 does, and what it does to the kind of force Iran spent 30 years building. The AH-64 Apache was designed to kill Soviet tanks in Central Europe. But here's what most analysts miss. Every capability that makes it lethal on land makes it more lethal inside a maritime choke point. Let's break it down. The chain gun. The Apache's M230 chain gun fires 30mm high-explosive rounds at 625 rounds per minute. An IRGC fast attack boat, the Boghammer or the Siraj class, has a hull built from fiberglass and aluminum. At engagement range, a single burst doesn't disable the boat, it erases it. The Hellfire missile system. The AH-64 carries up to 16 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles. Each one is laser-guided with a range of over 8 kilometers. In the Strait of Hormuz, that means you can engage a target on the far coastline without ever entering Iranian territorial waters. That's a legal firewall and a tactical firewall in one. The FLIR sensor. But here's the capability that makes the Apache uniquely dangerous in this environment. Its FLIR system. Forward-looking infrared. It sees heat signatures through darkness, smoke, and sea spray. The IRGC's primary asymmetric tactic is the nighttime swarm. Dozens of small, fast boats rushing a target simultaneously. Against conventional naval assets, that tactic has real potential. Against Apaches with full-spectrum thermal vision, it becomes a targeting exercise. To understand the full scope of what's happening, you need to understand the doctrine Iran built. It's called mosaic defense. Not one big navy, but thousands of small, distributed, fast-moving pieces designed to swarm and overwhelm a larger, slower opponent. The strategy was engineered specifically to exploit the limitations of large surface ships. A destroyer can't engage 40 small boats simultaneously. Its radar clutters, its crew gets overwhelmed, and in a narrow strait, large ships lose their maneuverability advantage entirely. The Apache doesn't have any of those problems. It moves faster than a fast attack boat. It operates in 3 dimensions, not 2. It has no turning radius. And critically, it can engage targets in any direction simultaneously across a formation. You cannot swarm something that flies. The mine layer problem. There's a second layer that's even more damaging to Iran's strategy: mines. Iran laid mines across key transit lanes in the Strait. Mines are effective because sweeping them is slow, dangerous, and requires specialized assets. But Apache helicopters can detect and neutralize mine-laying vessels before the mines go in. U.S. forces confirmed the destruction of several IRGC mine-laying vessels in recent operations. Without those vessels active, Iran's ability to replenish the minefield degrades fast. The doctrine is being dismantled piece by piece, not through overwhelming force but through a targeted, precise capability that was specifically matched to the threat. Here's the core of what's changed, and why it matters beyond the immediate military situation. Iran's blockade threat was always as much economic as military. Even the credible threat of closing the Strait of Hormuz sends oil futures spiking. That's the leverage. That's the card Tehran plays when it needs to pressure the West without triggering a full conventional response. But leverage only works if the threat is believable. When the world watches AH-64 Apaches systematically destroying Iran's fast attack fleet, its mine-laying vessels, and its coastal launch positions, the threat loses credibility. And once a deterrence doctrine loses credibility, it doesn't recover quickly. The alliance signal. There's a second strategic dimension here. Gulf Arab states, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Bahrain, have watched every move closely. The Apache deployment signals something they've been waiting years to see, that Washington is willing to commit forward assets, not just issue statements. That changes alliance calculations in the region for a generation. Iran's dilemma for Tehran. This creates a dilemma with no clean exit. Escalating means absorbing more losses against a capability they have no asymmetric answer for. Standing down means publicly conceding that the blockade option is off the table. Neither outcome is acceptable domestically. That is the panic. Scenario 1. Controlled retreat. Iran quietly scales back mine operations and fast attack deployments, framing it domestically as a tactical pause. Commercial shipping partially resumes. Oil prices stabilize. Tehran preserves the option to re-escalate rather than burning it entirely. This is the most likely near-term outcome, but it comes with serious domestic political costs for the regime. Scenario 2. Proxy escalation. Iran doesn't retreat from the Strait, but shifts pressure to other theaters. Houthi attacks on Red Sea shipping. Hezbollah activity in the north. Cyber attacks on Gulf energy infrastructure. The Strait goes quiet, but the broader campaign continues through deniable channels. This is Tehran's preferred playbook when direct options are foreclosed. Scenario 3. Miscalculation. A single engagement goes wrong. An Apache crew takes fire from a coastal position. Iran loses a senior IRGC naval commander in a strike. A commercial vessel is hit by misdirected fire. Miscalculation scenarios are, by definition, unplanned. But they're the one that keeps analysts awake. Because in a compressed geography with multiple armed actors operating in real time, the margin for error is nearly zero. Here's the one data point that will tell you which scenario is unfolding, before it appears in any headline. Watch IRGC fast attack boat movement in the northern Gulf, specifically around the Bandar Abbas Naval Base and Abu Musa Island. Open-source satellite platforms like Sentinel Hub update regularly and are publicly accessible. If those boats are pulling back into port and staying there, Iran is choosing Scenario 1. If they're repositioning south toward the Strait approaches, Scenario 2 or 3 is already in motion. The Apache deployment didn't end the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz. What it did was fundamentally change the cost-benefit calculation Iran has to make every single day. And in a conflict driven entirely by deterrence, that shift is everything. If you want to understand what comes next, the technology, the strategy, and the real forces driving this conflict, subscribe to Battlefield Brief. Every video is a briefing, not a broadcast.